Okay, so what happened to the missing 8.1 million? What do you think accounts for the discrepancy?
Well, so you'll see in my evidence package, we've actually invoiced CBSA in 3 years, close to $22 million, approximately. I'm not disputing the fact that $19 million wasn't invoiced through my company monthly. I'm disputing that $19.1 million is completely attributed towards the ArriveCAN application build.
Okay, so your testimony is that you've received 22 million from CBSA over the same period. You simply are disputing the categorization of it as being all related to ArriveCAN. What I would add to this in terms of frankly the absurdity is that the invoices that you've submitted to this committee, some of which are very kind of vague and unclear in terms of what they actually refer to, but they add up to 9.6 million. So you've shown this committee invoices for 9.6 million. You've also said you got 11 million that you categorize as related to ArriveCAN, and 22 million in total. So how do you explain the discrepancy between what you've shown us invoices for and what you said was you actually received?
So first of all, the 22 million is not just solely ArriveCAN. There was multiple projects we were working on during the pandemic. These were not ArriveCAN contracts, right? There were 3 pandemic.
The Auditor General says they are, but I was asking specifically about the difference between the 9.6 million and the 11 million. You said you got 11 million, but you didn't provide us with 11 million worth of invoices.
We sent hundreds of pages of documents over. I can follow up and make sure that those ones would result to $11 million. Yeah. I've done this again. Like
hundreds of pages doesn't absolve you of the need to provide accurate information, sir. And just in terms of the difference between the 19.1 and the 11 million, you started off your testimony by saying that everybody's lying and saying mean things about you. The media is wrong. The MPs are wrong. But you're also now saying the Auditor General's wrong. What are we as a committee to make of the fact that you want us to believe that everybody is wrong in their figures except you, and yet the invoices you've sent to the committee don't add up to the figure you said was spent was given to you in relation to ArriveCAN?
Yeah, I also said as well, it's in my opening statement that it's this testimony and this committee that have also had death threats against myself and my wife, which have had photographs of my kids being taken.
Sir, I'm looking for accurate information on the amount of taxpayers' money that went to your company. Now,
we've invoiced 1,500 times, $22 million.
Well, the invoices do not line up with the figures you've given. Sir, I'd like to know for all the money that you earned on this project, after expenses, what was the total amount of money that you and your partner took home from this project?
I haven't got the exact numbers after taxes, after expenses, through dividends, but I've told you it's approximately $2.5 million.
Each?
Approximately 2.5. No, in total. That's the 20%.
So you and your partner became millionaires through this project, and you want us to believe that all of the rest of it, in addition to the 2.8 million, were expenses, even though all you did is recruit. I mean, how expensive is a LinkedIn account these days?
Well, $2.5 million over 2 years is 1.25 divided by 2 people.
How many hours did you spend working on sending the LinkedIn invitation, sir?
That has no bearing on this project, does
it? I think it does. How much you earn for what work is the question we're asking, right? And the numbers don't line up. And
just a quick question and a quick answer, please.
Yeah. How many hours did you spend working on this project in exchange for the millions of dollars that you and your partner got for the act of recruiting?
It would have been between 30 to 40 hours every month with the invoicing, with doing timesheets, with doing accounting, with doing paying our resources. And
so what makes you so lucky that you got this opportunity?
Mr. Genuis, thanks very much. Mr. Baines, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Firth, for joining us today. can you, like, I think I'd like to get to the bottom of the process. And I think Canadians, I think, still are trying to understand how this process works and how do contracts get awarded. And I mean, elected officials come and go. You've been working with government, through the bureaucracy, with public service officials since 2007. Like, can you maybe take us back to your first time working with government, and what were the processes then? And did they change over time? How did you and your colleagues, your partners, navigate through any changes, if there have been changes through those processes? Did you build relationships over those times? Did our bureaucracy and because ultimately we have public service officials that work for decades and in different departments, hundreds of departments. So, like, how did they get comfortable seeing you? Did they overlook certain processes? That we're trying to get to the bottom, and I think of how contracts are being given out. And in this case, you've received hundreds of contracts since 2007 in your time working with government. And so maybe walk us through your time during 2007 and maybe try to answer some of those questions along the way.
Okay, thank you. So fundamentally, the government has a problem. They've identified they need to change the technology, they need a team of people to come in, or that there's just something they need to get done. At that point, they determine they need to put an RFP in place. So they'll work together on putting requirements together. They'll put everything they need, a statement of work, and so forth. At that point, it goes on to a public tender, onto a buy and sell, and there are companies who are invited. At that point, you then just decide whether you're going to bid on the opportunity or you're not. If you are, you then look at the requirements, you then go find the people, you then make sure that they are security cleared, and they're going to be the ones who are actually going to be the ones doing the work, should you win the contract. If you're successful, at that point, there's task authorizations that go against that contract, which is for individual pieces of work that go against that contract. A task authorization typically has a small statement of work. It'll have its tasks, it will have its deliverables, and the number of resources and types of resources that it wants. At that point, you would then respond to task authorizations. Bear in mind, it is one business at that point because you already have the contract. You would then submit the task authorizations that go through due process, that be evaluated by the department. And that's how you typically would get one or a number of resources in to do the work.
So this is 2007, exact same process?
Same process.
It hasn't changed?
Has not changed.
So is there a failure in with our officials going through the correct processes? Is it like, so you over time ultimately became someone who's mastered the process of how to get these contracts? Is that maybe, or is it just how to follow those guidelines? If you look at some of the issues that have arisen here, and you're saying that this is the process where recruitment is the norm, and you're bringing on people to complete these tasks, like this process hasn't changed since 2007. That's
correct. And saying we're lucky to be, what makes us so lucky is it's just we've just determined to be a two-person company that's figured out how to do what 10 people do, or 20 people do, or 30 people. Everybody has the same tasks if you're an owner or an employee of an IT staffing firm. You just have to follow the process that's been put out by PSPC. It's kind of black and white.
Okay, and then fast forward to your time. So how many people did you actually end up recruiting for the ArriveCAN job?
ArriveCAN would have been around 35 to 40 people in different capacities. But for CBSA proper, for the whole 3 years we were working there, over 100.
And so for the 35 people, each of them would have to go through a verification process?
Yep. They again, and please be clear that the government cannot go direct to these resources. They need vendors like ourselves to pass these people through.
Why is that not part of the process?
Just quick
Because
answer
you have
because
to
we're
be a
past our
qualified-
time. Sir, just start again,
You have
Mr.
to be a
Firth.
qualified vendor.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mr. Baines. Mrs. Vignola, please, for 2.5.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Firth, I'll just make a number of assertions, and I'd like you to confirm them or deny them. Now, if I understood correctly, GC Strategies was never responsible for the financial coding. It's the contract authority, i.e. CBSA, that was responsible for financial coding that was required under the Auditor General's analysis. Is that correct?
That's what the Auditor General's report says. I thought it'd be somebody in the financial department would be.
Thank you.
Vous, votre
Now, your sole responsibility as a company was to affix the contract number on your invoices. Is that correct?
Typically, contract numbers, task authorization numbers,
OK.
confirmation and sign off by the government.
La vérificatrice générale,
The Auditor General stressed that CBSA was not doing its financial coding adequately, and as a result, a complete verification had to be done manually by comparing each and every document and each invoice. Do you believe that with a manual verification of that sort, that the data can be corrected, whether it has to do with your company or any company whatsoever?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again? I want to make sure it could be the right answer.
considérez
Do you believe that once a manual verification of the financial coding will be conducted by the Auditor General, will that correct the data that was released a couple of weeks ago, both in your case and for other companies?
I'd have to ask what the manual verification would entail, and that all the information that they're verifying manually is actually all the information.
OK, merci. Saviez-vous que le processus
Were you aware that the procurement process used currently was implemented by the Minister of Public Works and Government Services at the time, Ms. Ambrose?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer.
OK. On va y aller avec une question.
Well, perhaps a more straightforward question. Do you find the procurement process to be straightforward, flexible, resilient, or cumbersome, complicated, complex, and needing to be improved?
I find it, after being in the industry for a long time, straightforward. However, I do think there needs to be a component where it's quicker for the government to go direct to the source.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bachrach, please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Now, I think it's pretty clear, looking at the relationship between you, Mr. Firth, and Mr. McDonald, I think it's pretty clear from your testimony what's in it for you, which is that you've established yourself as the government's go-to guy, that you have the ability to run these contracts through your company, and Mr. McDonald therefore funnels a bunch of work to you, and you're able to charge these commissions. That's been well established. What I've had a harder time understanding is what's in it for Mr. McDonald. And I'm going to go back to some Globe and Mail reporting from January 16th, and this involves communications between you and the two Bottler principals. And you urged them to single out Mr. McDonald for praise when meeting with other senior government officials. And the quote here from you, Mr. Firth, is, "I just want to make sure that he gets taken care of," right? This was told to Ms. Dutt and Mr. Morv. And I'm just wondering if you can clarify what him being taken care of would entail, and why it was so important that Mr. McDonald got taken care of, in your view.